So there's an article floating around that suggests that Steve Ballmer is not too happy with the Clippers roster, and everybody is tradable under the roster except for Kawhi Leonard. Now, there are some content providers on YouTube that seem to suggest that everyone's tradable, including Kawhi Leonard. I just haven't found that article establishing that fact. And I don't feel like Kawhi Leonard is in the trade market. I think Steve Ballmer and Kawhi Leonard has a mutual agreement. He's going to remain with the LA Clippers. If you been following Kawhi Leonard, he's in the market for a second house, a bigger house in Los Angeles, and he's staying in Los Angeles. Now, yes, he can theoretically have two houses in Los Angeles and play somewhere else. All right. Theoretically, he can do that. But from what I have gathered, it seems like there's agreement in place with Steve Ballmer and Kawhi Leonard. Now, for the remaining people that's on the roster, everyone is tradable. All right. And the common denominator of a lot of articles seems to suggest that Paul George is going to be traded away from the Clippers. A lot of people are suggesting that the Clippers lost a lot of draft picks in getting Paul George, and they would like to get some of those draft picks back, as well as another player. Now, if you look at Kawhi Leonard when he won rings with San Antonio, when he won the one ring with Toronto, there's a common theme between those two teams, and he always had a great point guard, either Kyle Lowry for Toronto or Tony Parker for San Antonio, and I feel like they're basically going to be looking in the offseason for a veteran point guard. Now, there are also rumors that suggest that there's a possibility that Chris Paul could return to La La Land for the LA Clippers. There's also rumors that suggest that LeBron James is wanting Chris Paul to be their point guard for the LA Lakers. All right. Either or, there's a lot of rumors that suggest that Chris Paul is going to be a point guard for either the Clippers or the Lakers. I think that's going to be a little bit too rich for the Clippers' blood, because in order to get Chris Paul, they're going to have to give up a lot. And I don't think they have a lot to sway to get Chris Paul away from Oklahoma City Thunder. Okay, when you look at their management, they're building for the future. So obviously they either want young talent or draft picks. Okay. And I don't think the Lakers have enough either for Chris Paul. So there may be a possibility where the Oklahoma City Thunder will probably release Chris Paul, but I highly doubt it. Okay. So, but back to this main story. The Clippers definitely need a point guard to take the pressure away from Kawhi Leonard, as far as him constantly having the ball all the time. And they're going to be in the market for that. Now, Patrick Beverley is a good player. He's a good defender. But that's where his attributes are. That's what his talent is. He's not a traditional point guard, all right? He plays like he should be a 2 or 3, all right? And defensive-wise, they got that covered. And I think Patrick Beverley is going to still remain with the team because his contract is contract-friendly, all right? But they are in the market for a point guard. Now, as far as, I apologize for the noise in the background, as far as them exploring free agency for a veteran point guard, that too is a possibility. Now, going into the draft, they don't even, first of all, I think the Clippers' problems were they didn't have a traditional point guard. And they're going to be in the market in the offseason to get one in free agency or via trade. Now, there is a report that suggests that Paul George, there's a trade scenario with the Clippers as well as the Brooklyn Nets, where the Brooklyn Nets are going to get PG-13, and in return, they're going to give a combination of two things that's definitely going to help the Clippers, draft picks as well as some of the talent that they already have on their roster with Allen or whoever. All right, and that's going to really help the Clippers roster, particularly strengthening their bench, as well as they're going to have draft picks to play around with. That's a possibility. All right, but other than that, I feel like the odd man out is PG-13. I think everyone on the Clippers roster can't stand PG-13, and for people to say, well, there was also jealous and envy of Kawhi Leonard's. Not only he got the contract, but the recommendations, like the load management, those bonuses that he got, which was load management, a lot of things that was agreed in order for him to land with the LA Clippers. I think the roster, even though they're kind of ticked off about that, they're willing to adapt with it. Now, I don't know how PG-13, I don't know how Paul George was grandfathered the same type of stuff that Kawhi Leonard was getting, but nevertheless, he did get those things in the season. I think that's when ultimately it exploded. The older roster versus Paul George, the Doc Rivers roster versus Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, more so Paul George. And you have to remember, when Doc Rivers was the coach for the Los Angeles Clippers, they had a workman type mentality, bring your lunch pail type of mentality. They didn't have no stars on their roster, all right? And they did pretty good. They went into the playoffs. They just couldn't advance into the promised land, hence why they were in the market for Kawhi Leonard. And one of the requirements, many requirements for Kawhi Leonard was, there's certain things that he won't as far as load management goes, as far as taking care of his uncle and things of that nature, as well as he was not going to go there unless they got Paul George, which that's what they did. And in order for them to get Paul George, they had to really mortgage their future to get Paul George. Now they're stuck with Paul George, and now there's not a possibility. Now there's a fact that they're going to need a point guard. I feel like if they get a point guard and they keep everything status quo, they're going to be the favorites, okay? I feel like Ty Lue can coach these guys up. Ty Lue has been with the Clippers even last year. So he identifies and he knows the problems that are lingering with that roster. I feel like the roster has pretty much, gotten over the fact that, Kawhi Leonard is getting these perks, all right? But I don't think they're over the fact that Paul George has been grandfathered in to get these perks as well. And like I said, I feel like the odd man out is going to be Paul George, and I think the Clippers are going to be, it's going to be business as usual. Now, as far as what a lot of content providers are uploading, saying that Kawhi Leonard is going to be traded, I just do not see that. All right. Like I said earlier in this video, I think they have an agreement. And when I mean Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer, they have an agreement in place. And at the end of the season, he's going to sign the extension. He's going to remain with the Los Angeles Clippers. And as long as they support the perks that they said that they was going to honor, that's fine. I think that's not going to be a big deal or a problem or even a sticking point to Ty Lue, because, Ty Lue once coached LeBron James, all right? And LeBron James had perks and requirements, all right? And he micromanaged that between LeBron James and the rest of the roster. And I feel like he's going to do the same with Kawhi and the rest of the roster. And like I said in the beginning of this video, I feel like the roster understands why Kawhi Leonard is getting all these perks, okay? Because he had all the leverage. He won the title. He was MVP. So, of course, if you want that type of caliber player, you're going to have to, offer him the farm. So that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say on it. Like I said, I'll holler at you guys later. Deuces.